It is a joyous day in the land of the Samoans. What is going on, guys? We are here. Happy Monday night and happy Monday Night Raw review. I wanted to come up here tonight and give you guys a quick Raw review to talk about Naomi's big announcement that we were expecting this evening on Raw. It was advertised by WWE that she was going to be addressing her situation and the future of the World Heavyweight Championship. And last week, of course, she was all set for a championship match against Io Sky, and prior to Raw going on the air, WWE made the announcement via social media that Naomi was not cleared to compete. And it did not take fans long to start figuring out what it might be, since WWE was being slightly tight-lipped about the injury and or the circumstances, that is, and we didn't really know what the injury was, if there was an injury at all. And some fans started bringing up pregnancy, and a lot of folks felt that that was going to be the case. And as the week progressed, it really felt like that was really what was going on here, because if it was some sort of a legitimate injury, there would be no reason for WWE to really not talk about it. If it's a leg injury, arm injury, shoulder, knee, neck, concussion, whatever it is, there would be no reason for them to keep that quiet. And since Naomi was going to address her future and whatnot, it felt like that was going to be it, and it was. Naomi on Raw tonight, top of the second hour, I believe, right before the main event. She did come out to the ring, and they kind of half spoiled it a little bit prior to her coming out. They said that there's going to be a new episode of the Stephanie McMahon podcast dropping immediately after Raw. And they showed a quick clip of Jimmy and Naomi about to make a big announcement, and then they stopped. And then Naomi comes out to the ring and directs the fans to the Tron, where they played the full clip and they announced their pregnancy. So Jimmy Uso and Naomi are expecting a child. Naomi is with child, which means she can no longer compete, and she was going to have to relinquish the title here. And I absolutely loved it. We're going to talk about it later on in detail. But in terms of how the segment came off, I know we've only had 2 of these, but this is my favorite forfeit the title due to pregnancy segment we've ever had. I liked it better than the Becky one, and I'll explain why later. But I really liked that Naomi did her best. You know, she stayed in character. She stayed a heel, kicking Adam Pearce out of the ring, talking shit to the fans, talking about Netflix and chill. The bloodline continues, baby. She's having a good time, kind of still being evil pregnant Naomi, while you can see her true self written all over her face. She came out there with tears. She was going through all of that in tears. And so it was kind of like her last little hurrah of her being in character, because we're going to lose Naomi now for probably a minimum of a year. And that's only if she intends on coming right back, which, based on her promo tonight, we kind of got that answer. She said if she has to come back here breastfeeding her kids, she will. So the minute this thing is out, Naomi is going to be on her road back to the ring. And that's really, really exciting. So we'll talk a little more about that here later on. But that was the big news of Monday Night Raw tonight. Naomi making it official. She is pregnant, and she is no longer the women's champion. Now, what are they going to do with the women's championship? Sounds like they're going to address that next week. I had predicted last week when we were talking about this, that if Naomi has to relinquish the title, that I think they just need to do a 3-way. Io Sky, Rhea Ripley, and Stephanie Vaquer. Stephanie Vaquer needs to be in there because she already has that title match that she earned. So she's got to be in it. And add Io and Ripley to the mix. Make a really fun triple threat. I think that would be an incredible match for Paris in front of that crowd. And like I've said several times over the past week, I would give the title to Io Sky. And then I would have Ripley finally getting that win over Io Sky in Perth. Not here at Clash in Paris, because since they've been making such a story out of that, with Ripley not being able to beat her, I think when that victory comes, it needs to come one-on-one, not in a triple threat. So that's the way I see that going down, but we'll learn for sure what they're going to do next week. But you got to think it's got to be Stephanie, Ripley, and Io. I don't know what else they would do. I would just throw all 3 of them in there for the vacant championship. You know, unless you want to take a week to do a couple qualifying matches and add more women to it, I don't know what you want to do there, but I feel like that will be the direction with the championship. So overall, I thought Raw was okay tonight. I had my issues with it, mainly with the main event. Now, I'm happy that Triple H finally, it kind of dawned on him, light bulb there, that we might not want to give the audience our 5th straight DQ finish in a main event on Raw, so they booked an Extreme Rules match tonight, which means we would get an actual finish. But even with that, it was so predictable and so obvious. You could almost predict the order in which the run-ins were going to happen. You know? It's like, first it's going to be LA Knight, then it's going to be Seth, then it's going to be Punk, then it's going to be Roman, because you knew Roman was going to be out here tonight because he's advertised. WWE slapped him on a Clash in Paris poster. So you know he's going to have a match. It's probably going to be against Bronson Reed, and that's what they're going to set up here in the main event. We're going to get a whole bunch of interference from a whole bunch of guys, and the final guy to come out will be Roman Reigns, and that will be where they kind of tease whatever match he's going to do at Clash in Paris, and that's exactly how it fucking went down. Right until the end. I mean, the fact that he came out there and attacked Breaker and cost Breaker the match, I was thinking maybe Roman's working with Breaker. I think that's a little bit on the horizon. He's going to be working with Bronson Reed in Paris, as he did pretty much lay down the challenge as the show went off the air tonight to Reed, saying, "I will see you in Paris." So that match is pretty much a lock, and that was all fine. But like I said, it was just kind of predictable. The rest of the matches, they were okay. Overall, what would you give Raw tonight, guys? What would you grade it? I'm going to tend to go with you guys. I wouldn't say tonight was a great show, but the Naomi stuff kind of made it good. I was expecting the super sappy, tearful moment. She's starting a family, and, all the heel character is just evaporated. The fact that they kept this a wrestling segment while at the same time announcing a pregnancy and forfeiting the title, I thought it was really, really well done. It was just excellent. So because of that, I can't give the show any less than a B. But outside of that, I might be giving this show a C or below because everything was relatively kind of standard or predictable, but not as boring as SmackDown. Tonight's Raw was definitely better than SmackDown, and we do have some stories that are ongoing here on Raw that I do have a fair amount of interest in, and they did drop another one of those Bayley vignettes, although I think that was during the commercial break, where they might be teasing this like broken Bayley type of character here, which I am totally on board with. So between that and some of the dynamics with Punk and Knight and Jey Uso and whatnot, and Asuka and Io Sky and everything there, they have the Kabukis involved in this somehow, which I'm not sure how that's going to play into my plans for the women's championship, having Io win in Paris, then Rhea beat her in Perth, and then Stephanie win at WrestleMania. Asuka and Kairi Sane are going to be a wrench in these plans, I think, based on what we saw here. Other than that, just kind of a so-so show, I think, tonight. But we'll kind of go through it here. We'll talk about what we saw and what we're going to see at Clash in Paris. And let me know your grades on the show right there in the chat. It's good to see everyone. Happy Monday to you. This is your WWE Raw review for August 18th, 2025. As always, you know what to do. Smash Mr. Thumbs Up button over there if you're not a subscriber. Please become one, as we are kind of in a little bit of transition here as we're wrapping up our final month in this house after I've been here for 5 years. So I'm going to be transitioning to a very much smaller, simpler, but very cool YouTube setup. I'm really excited for the new place, so that's coming up. So we got a few more Raw reviews in here before we change up the look a little bit, and I'm super stoked. Been working hard on it behind the scenes, so I am looking forward to the future here the next couple of months, especially the fall months when the summer's over, the weather cools down, we got football on TV, and everything is flavored like pumpkin. It is real close, guys. It's coming up, so stay tuned for a fun fall here on Good Mic Work Commentaries. Thanks to everyone who joined us last night for our SummerSlam 1997 watch-along. That was a trip, rewatching some of that stuff, and the pile driver and Bret Hart winning the championship. So thank you to everyone who was here last night. It was really fun reliving that show, and I'm sorry for putting it off for so many years. I just waited literally till the last minute to do SummerSlam 97, and SummerSlam 96 will be the final one we will do, and that'll probably be next year because I don't think we have any plans or any more room left in August to do those. Let's do some shout-outs, or some hellos, I should say, real quick, because I don't think this is going to be a very long review. Not a whole lot of wrestling news to get into here tonight, other than a small update on Danhausen. Other than that, we'll just kind of run through the show here, and then I'm going to get out of here and have some dinner and watch a movie with Elizabeth. That's my plans tonight, and I hope you guys have a great one, too. Good to see Doug Unfunny, Zane G, Ajax Johnson. Yes, congrats to Naomi and Big Jim. Max Pokey, bro, good to see you. Sup, Greg? Ready for Rhea to win the vacated title? No, I'm not. She's going to win the title, but I don't want her to win the vacated one. I don't want her to beat Io Sky in like a three-way. I don't want her to finally get that win over Io that they've been, making such a story out of, this monkey off her back. I'd rather not see that come in a triple threat environment or come in a match that's loaded with kabukis or whatever out there. I would rather see Ripley get that win against Io Sky one-on-one, and I think it would be better for Io to win the vacated title. That way, Ripley can kill two birds with one stone. She can not only beat Io Sky for the first time, she can win that championship back. But when I saw on social media, I responded to a tweet, I think it was Conman's, or who's going to be the next women's champion. It's so funny how everybody's brains are just programmed to think the same way. Every single comment. Well, obviously, Ripley. Why obviously? She's lost a whole bunch of big matches this year. Like, it's that Rhea Hogan syndrome that's going on. I'm like, why would it be obviously? These fans that want so desperately for Ripley to be this over-pushed talent, it's not happening right now. She's going to be featured on TV every single fucking week unless she's injured. She's going to be there. She's the star of the show. She's the top woman in the promotion. She's the top women's wrestler in the promotion. She's up there with the top wrestler in the promotion overall as well. It should not be weird to anyone, Max or anyone else, if she wins a lot of championships. We're all watching the same business here. None of this is weird to me. I'm watching the same shit you're watching. So why is it weird to y'all and not weird to me? Why is everybody just so convinced that it's Ripley Cena? I think Ripley Cena might be a better nickname than Ripley Hogan, because people are acting like they're pushing Rhea like Cena. They're kind of not. She's lost a whole bunch of times. So anyway, Max, she is going to win the championship, absolutely, and she will have that beautiful gold belt around her waist before 2025 is over. I just don't think it's happening in Paris. I would rather give that to Io Sky, unless they are tying in something with the Kabukis here where they're going to fuck her over. We'll talk about that later, but I almost think that maybe they could help her win the championship, and then she's a little bit upset about it, but also has to kind of be grateful at the same time, and that's what leads us to our Perth match. I don't know how it's going to go. I have a feeling, though, with all the moving parts, this idea that I keep hammering home about Io in Paris, Ripley in Perth, Stephanie at WrestleMania, I'm only saying that because I think that would be an excellent way for it to go. I'm not saying that as in I believe WWE is going to go that way. Because if that WWE Unreal show taught us anything, they don't know what the fuck's going on. I don't care what they have written on that stupid whiteboard or how many Sour Patch Kids they eat. They don't have it figured out until just a couple of days before the show. So I just think that would be a good way to do it. But we could very well have Rhea Ripley celebrating right there at the end of Perth, or at the end of Clash in Paris with the championship, and then Max is going to be like, see, Greg, Rhea Hogan, I was right. And you very well might be, Max, that's for sure. Ajax, I already got you. Mike Witt, I want Natty's MMA gimmick in WWE. Do it, Triple H. I felt like they might be setting that up. The way she's doing that like MMA type of gimmick outside of WWE, but then gets her arm hurt and submits to the disarmer. I was almost wondering if they are going to have Natty show up as this badass and maybe she's the one to beat Becky. That would be great. I don't know, but Becky's current feud is with Nikki Bella, and we'll see. Ronnie Matthews, Sonic Plays, good to see you. Crazy J and the Juliet is here. DJG, J Lambo. We've got the new Paradigm. We have the new one, and Nick Musser is here as well, along with Ram K, Rodrigo, Stone Cold. Anybody else chiming in? Welcome. Thanks for being here. Like I said, this will be a pretty quick one this evening because I got things to do. But definitely want to talk about Raw tonight because it was a significant show as we head into Clash in Paris with the card, taking more of a shape. And I think next week we'll have a really good idea of how it looks once they announce what I believe will be a triple threat between Rhea Ripley, Io Sky, and Stephanie Velcro, as Naomi so lovingly called her. So let's get into Raw tonight. Tonight's Raw was in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And, of course, Paul Heyman and his Vision open up the show. So they had already announced a main event tonight of Jey Uso versus Braun Breaker. So that was already on tap. They did a good job the last couple of weeks, WWE anyway, of announcing a lot of matches ahead of time. So when I woke up this morning, I had pretty much the whole card right there in front of me, which was kind of nice. So the Vision comes out, and right off the bat, Heyman is hyping up Seth Rollins as a 2-time WrestleMania main event winner, holding 2 WrestleMania main event wins over Roman Reigns. Both were technically in triple threat formats, as one was a cash-in, one was regular, but that is true. He does have 2 victories in WrestleMania main events over Roman Reigns. And help me, now I forget. Who did he pin? Did he pin Punk at WrestleMania 41? Who did he pin in the main event there? Punk or Roman? Because he pinned Roman at WrestleMania 31 to win the title, right? I actually don't remember who got pinned, if it was Roman or Punk at this year's Night 1 main event. But anyway, Heyman is hyping Seth up as this defeater of Roman Reigns. So you knew we were going to see Roman later. And then Jey Uso comes out to interrupt before Seth can talk, because Heyman puts over all the members of the Vision. And then as soon as Seth is about to speak, Uso interrupts. He's up in the crowd, and he starts talking about the match with Braun Breaker and, of course, the big 4-way for the championship at Clash in Paris. And then Seth Rollins starts to rile up Braun Breaker, because he's, of course, facing Jey Uso in the main event, and he starts telling Breaker that he says your family's a bunch of fat losers, and he says this, and he says that. And while he's saying these things, Braun's getting increasingly agitated, and I'm like, Jey Uso is right up there. He hasn't said any of this, and Rollins is just being like, he says your family sucks, and he says your dad's a piece of shit, and he says he hopes your mom dies, and all this crap, and Breaker's just getting madder and madder, and I'm just like, this is so stupid, because it's working. And I like, aside from his name, which I hate. You guys, I've gone on 2-hour rants about how much I hate his fucking name. Still do, and it'll drive me crazy until I die. But despite that, he is such... You can clearly see that he's the future of this company. He's so good in almost every way, from his look, from his mic skills, from his intensity, his bonkers, ability in the ring and whatnot. He's just going to be so fun to watch as a major superstar. But he is dumb as a box of dicks. I mean, how in the world is he falling for this? How is he allowing Rollins to so easily manipulate him? He comes off like a dumbass. He comes off like someone who cannot think for himself, who's just a basic fucking caveman, a goddamn animal, to where he just listens to whatever Seth tells him, and then just viciously attacks like an attack dog. Where I would hope that Braun Breaker would be a little bit smarter than that, and when Seth just starts really getting in his face, he's not like, hold on a minute, like, I don't like him. Don't get me wrong, but he didn't say any of that. I don't understand, like, where's the logic here? How is Breaker allowing himself to be riled up so easily by this puppet master? And I think it makes him look weak. I think it makes him look mentally weak, because you have to not only be physically strong to be a champion, you have to be mentally strong. And you have to be able to understand things, see things coming. Even if you're a heel, even if you're a dumbass chicken shit heel, who isn't supposed to be really smart, you need to be at least smarter than this. And I didn't think that made Braun Breaker look very smart. It made him look like, if the plan or the goal is to make him look like this unpredictable monster who you never know what he's going to do, then that's fine. Then he should be, maybe a little bit less mentally capable, than others, if he's just an unpredictable, savage fucking beast, if that's what they're going for here. And I get that. But it was the ease in which Rollins was doing these things that makes me wonder how that's going to affect him for the long term. Obviously, we know in the future the Vision is going to crumble, and it's probably going to be Breaker getting increasingly frustrated by being, held down. Everything is done for Seth. What about me? This is a story beat that every faction in the history of wrestling has done, and we're going to see it here too. So you can clearly see the future of how this thing is going to crumble at some point, with Seth being this cocky, arrogant, ruler who expects everybody just to fall in line. And eventually that unpredictability and that intensity of Braun Breaker is going to bubble over and not be able to tolerate that any longer. And when he does, he's going to rip Seth Rollins' fucking head off and eat it. And that's going to be awesome when it happens. But before then, right now, he's looking dumb. He's looking like a dumb ass. He's looking like a simpleton, like a simple man who cannot think or process information on his own. He has to have his hand held all the way through. And I didn't like that. I thought that he should be a little bit more mentally capable of being able to smell bullshit that's right in front of him, and we're going to get there, but I just thought this one specific example was something that I didn't like very much. And so after this is great. After Rollins is done riling up Braun Breaker, Heyman then starts to pitch basically an Extreme Rules match with Jay and Breaker. How about tonight right here in Philadelphia many years ago, not far down from here at the ECW arena. We used to have matches like this whatever the fuck he said, I don't remember, but he starts name dropping ECW legends like the Sandman and whoever the fuck else. He named the Dudley Boys. I heard him say the Dudley Boys. And so he's bringing up all these ECW legends, and then he says, I think he says the late great somebody, maybe Chris Candido or something, or the late great Sabu, and then he says the late great Tommy Dreamer. And this is where I can't tell if he made a mistake and he overcorrected, or if this whole exchange was planned. So Heyman, as he's name dropping people, he says like the late great Sabu, the late great Tommy Dreamer, and then he immediately recognizes that he's wrong. Dreamer's not dead, and he says, "I know he's not dead, but he should be." And then Breaker says, "He's still alive?" And then Heyman goes, "Unfortunately." So Tommy Dreamer just out here catching some strays, which I enjoyed because I don't really like Tommy Dreamer very much. He's just weird to me. And maybe there's some unresolved history between him and Paul Heyman, or maybe it's just playful ribbing. I think that when Heyman was saying late great, he just said it one too many times. I think people have done that by accident before. I don't think that's the first time I've heard someone refer to a living person as the late great. Sometimes you just do that. So I think he might have just accidentally said it and then tried to correct by saying, "I know he's not dead, but he should be." Oh, God. When Tommy Dreamer does die, they're going to have to play that clip. Who's going to die first, him or Heyman? Probably Heyman. But my God, that was just a wild exchange, and I got a huge chuckle out of it. And I hope that it's just kind of some playful ribbing, but if not, it sounds like Heyman just made a mistake and then tried to correct for it, made it worse. Either way, I was sports entertained, and that's all that mattered to me. So basically, after all that name dropping, all that ECW shit, Jay is like, "Cool, no problem. Breaker, myself, Extreme Rules, main event." So at least we were guaranteed to not get a disqualification finish in tonight's main event, which I think has happened on the last 14 or 15 Raws in a row. But we had a Hell in a Cell match with a disqualification once, didn't we? So I wasn't counting my chickens, so to speak, because I still felt that even with an Extreme Rules stipulation, you know exactly what's going to happen with everybody coming out and which the order they're going to come out and all that stuff. So kind of a predictable main event, even with the Extreme Rules stipulation. We just didn't know exactly how many cookie sheets they were going to hit each other with. That's all. So we cut backstage. Io Sky is back there. She's chilling at Gorilla. She is approached by the Kabukis. Of course, the three of them had a big shouting match, and Asuka just stormed off, pissed off last week. So now the Kabukis are back. They both apologize to Io, and Io says it's okay, I appreciate it, and once again insists on doing everything on her own, but says that she still loves them, and then they share some nice high fives. And I don't think those high fives are going to last. And then Io Sky has a one-on-one match with Raquel Rodriguez. So it's Io Sky versus Raquel. Pretty fun match, to be honest. Even though it kind of felt like a throwaway match here, but it was pretty fun. Roxanne was out there, of course, getting all involved. But in the end, it was Io Sky hitting the over the moonsault to Raquel for the win. And right after that, Roxanne immediately attacks. There's a post-match beatdown on Io Sky, and she's getting her ass kicked right after she told the Kabukis to stay out of her business so they don't come out. They just allow her to get beat down, but then Mommy comes out. Rhea Ripley. Moment of silence, please. I'm just thinking about what she was wearing. Okay, I'm done. So Ripley came out. Oh, my God. So she comes out, kicks the shit out of Roxanne, runs them off, and saves Io Sky. A little bit later on, they're backstage, Io Sky and Rhea Ripley, and I really like this because Ripley is basically standing in the same hallway where she was attacked. Was it after Mania or whatever it was by Liv Morgan, and she got that shoulder injury because that had the Philadelphia Sixers shit on there, and she's right there in that hallway. And when she was talking to Io, she was kind of like looking around or like kind of giving it some looks, being like, oh yeah, bad memories here. So this was really funny because while Io and Ripley are talking, the Kabukis then show up, and of course Asuka's all fucking spazzing out, and she's mad. She can help you, but we can't. And so obviously they're mad, and then the fucking four of them start screaming at each other. And then Io Sky, like last week it was Asuka running off. This week it was Io Sky running off. But it's just the way she did it. These three women screaming words I can't understand. They're all yelling at each other. And the way Io just says, fuck it, just walks off, and she's doing this thing with her hands. It's like, it's such a weird reference. But, you know, Team America, the puppet movie from those years ago. What's the one guy's got like the distress signal where he's got to like shake his hands. Like that's what it reminded me of, like the signal, like, he's going like that. So she's shaking it off, storming off while she's screaming and shaking her hands. And I just laughed for 5 fucking straight minutes. Really like that. And then Rhea Ripley kind of walks away. And when she's doing that, she's kind of looking at the basically the hallway of where she was attacked by Liv Morgan. That was what, Raw after Mania or something, right? And that whole thing then happened. So I liked all that. That was a good little piece of business there, not only with the pre-match little interaction, the match I actually liked, and then the backstage stuff just had me laughing. So somewhere in between all of that, they ran one of them Bayley vignettes, which I believe, because I saw the little countdown happening, so I think this was a commercial break thing. I don't know if everybody saw this or what, but I don't think so. But they ran it last week as well, where Bayley is, you know, really kind of down on herself. And I think last week in the Raw review, I kind of misread it. I was like, are they going to go for some like bum ass Bayley type of thing? You know, are they trying to send a message here about mental health, or, you know, what are they trying to do? You know, I thought maybe this was going to be like maybe a positive angle to kind of draw attention to important mental health and things like that. But it doesn't look like that's going to be that at all. This is going to be some sort of like a broken Bayley type of gimmick here, because in both vignettes at the very end of it, she lets out that really kind of crazy laugh. So, you know, we already have the Wyatt Six, so I don't know if she'd necessarily fit into a character like that. But part of me wondered if, you know, if Bayley starts going a little bit nuts, if we could get like a hugger Bayley, you know, like a hugger Bayley the way we had Funhouse Bray. Like, what if it was a play on that? She has hugger Bayley where she maybe does backstage segments or vignettes, I should say, where they run vignettes for her debut as Hugger Bayley, but then she comes out a little meaner or something. Or it might just be she's going to go a little bit crazy if she was, if they tried to give a Matt Hardy thing to her. Like, I would love for her to get the wild hair. Broken Bayley might be a lot of fun. Either way, these vignettes imply that plans are in place for Bayley, and that's good, and that she's got some sort of a change happening. I'm glad that it doesn't appear that she's just simply going to turn heel and align herself with Becky. Some of us were thinking they might do that. Instead, this is going to be kind of a standalone heel turn, it looks like, or not heel turn, whatever she's going to do, character change, whatever you want to call it. And I hope that it results in championship gold for Bayley. It better. And we'll see how, you know, if they have to do anything else that triggers the final transformation here, or if this entire transformation is going to happen throughout, you know, through the form of vignettes, or if there's more to happen here, like she comes out, has another match, gets disappointed again, somebody screws her over, whatever it is, and that is what finishes off the transformation into, you know, whatever this is going to be. We will see, but I'm happy that there seems to be a creative direction for Bayley, which is good, since she got, you know, knocked out of WrestleMania and SummerSlam, which sucks. And so they're making a story out of that. So cool. After that, we had CM Punk and LA Knight backstage. Punk is trying to pitch unity to LA Knight and Jey Uso, because if they don't look out for each other or watch each other's backs, the Vision is going to take them out, and none of them will even make it to Clash in Paris. But LA Knight's not too interested in that. Later on, Jey Uso really wouldn't be interested in that either, and he doesn't want to owe anybody any favors. So Knight and Jey are both telling Punk, like, bro, mind your business. And that's fine. Penta was taking on Xavier Woods this week. This is another pre-advertised match. Woods still trying to get revenge for the destruction of his hat, which he claims cost him $18,000. I was looking up sombreros on Amazon, like even big ones. Xavier slightly overpaid for that because he said he paid $18,000. I found one for $18. He paid $18,000, so he either didn't carry his one, something happened there, but Woods, I can hook you up, bro. And what's great about me is I have Prime, so if I order something, it's here like the next day. A lot of people don't have that. It's very expensive, So maybe you want to use me for that. If you want to use my Prime membership, I will hook you up with a new sombrero, and I will save you $18,000 in the process. You're welcome. He did get beat here by Penta, Mexican Destroyer, for the win, and that was pretty much the end of that. So Woods still on his quest to get revenge for his hat. Grayson Waller, incidentally, was out there rocking black overalls. Think about Powerhouse Hobbs, right? Now think about the opposite of Powerhouse Hobbs. That's what he had going on there. After that, they showed a highlight video of Triple Mania. Triple Mania was a really fun-looking show. I caught most of it, a lot of the highlights anyway, because it was streaming on YouTube. And they showed highlights of the main event where AJ Styles came in to cost Dominic Mysterio the championship. And then after the match, there's a video of Dom walking in the backstage area, very pissed off that he got screwed, and he challenges Vikingo for Worlds Collide, which is coming up in Vegas on September 12th. I believe that's a Friday. And Dom is going to go after that championship, and he could be a double champion. I think he's got a good chance to win that one. I predicted Vikingo to retain at Triple Mania. Worlds Collide could be a completely different thing. What I loved about this video of Dominic as well is that Rey Mysterio was there, and they passed by each other, and Rey just trolls his son and keeps walking. Loved it. I actually love that they're just still kind of at odds, Rey and Dom. AAA did have some news coming out of it. Rey Mysterio was in the ring to induct Conan into the AAA Hall of Fame. I guess that was just the ceremony right there. Conan got inducted, and when Rey was speaking, I guess the fans were chanting for Alberto Del Rio, or Alberto El Patron, who's still very popular down there, and Rey said something in Spanish, something to the effect like, just give me some time and I'll get him here, or something like that. I hope he was just doing it to shut the crowd up, and and Rey doesn't really have enough political ability to get this motherfucker a job back in that company. This guy who's like kidnapped a woman and choked her and all this shit. Fuck him. I cannot believe we're even having this conversation. I never thought we would ever have to worry about Alberto Del Fuckface ever being in the WWE again, but maybe there's still a chance here. In terms of Triple Mania, I was happy for the success that it had. The amount of people that were watching that live stream was tremendous. They had a great crowd on hand, although Mexican wrestling still draws very well. CMLL, have you seen the attendance that they're doing? Jesus Christ. I mean, it's eclipsing WWE numbers. So wrestling is hot in Mexico. This was a big, production upgrade for AAA, as they have had a history of problems and, with production and botches and just, some of the production values, the look of their show that they've had before. So now with WWE being their owners pretty much, they're going to get a big production upgrade, and that's good. But one of the things that this show showed me is what a world with WWE-owned properties is going to look like. Because there was, I don't know if it's a resolution or what you call it there with the camera, but there was, they did retain a little bit of that original vibe of how the camera looks. But in terms of, and of course the ring, I think it's still a WWE ring, but they got the AAA looking mat, they got the correct colored ropes. The arena is kind of lit in a similar way. Of course, they got their original referees out there too, I believe. And so there's some of the vibe that's there, but I feel like it's, they're going to adopt 80% of WWE's production style while only retaining a little bit of the original vibe, the original kind of identity. And that's what's so cool about other promotions, specifically international promotions, is that when you watch Mexican wrestling, when you watch Japanese wrestling, when you watch wrestling from Europe, they all have that similar, or that not similar, they all have that individual feels. They look a certain way. They're photographed a certain way. They're shot a certain way. There's a vibe. Mexico feels like Mexico. Japan feels like Japan. Europe feels like Europe. Even in the territory days, it was like that. AWA felt like AWA. NWA felt like NWA. It was very hard to confuse the two. They had two very distinct, different looks to them. Georgia looked different than Portland. All that stuff it just looked different. You kind of knew what you were watching. And then internationally, it's even more so. Japanese wrestling, part of the fun of watching Japanese wrestling is to watch it with the Japanese announcers not knowing what the hell they're saying. That's just part of it, part of the experience. So one thing that saddens me with WWE, if they start going into this mass acquisition mode again, where they want to start working with everybody, I would be terrified of what a WWE and New Japan partnership would look like. If we start seeing those New Japan shows with fucking Snickers advertisements and all that shit that we see on WWE, and I saw that on Triple Mania, just the camera angles, the way they faded in and out of the arena, all of that stuff, just the basic stuff that we're used to, just looked like it had a WWE template overlaid onto it. And that's not necessarily bad. There are positives to draw from it because of the amount of attendance they had, because of the viewership, because of the increase in eyeballs that you're now going to have, having WWE backing you and pushing you and promoting you and advertising you. Plus, you have their production equipment at your disposal now. You shouldn't have to worry about technical difficulties anymore with WWE. So all of that is great, but I feel like it does take away a little bit from the overall vibe of what AAA does. Now, all the shows they're still going to run in Mexico, I'm sure are still going to feel like that. And they're all not going to look like what we saw at Triple Mania. But if WWE is going to be in charge of producing, these PLEs or these big special events now, we're going to see a WWE skewed type of production style to that. And to me, we already get enough of that. We have Raw, we have SmackDown, we have NXT. If WWE winds up buying TNA, all that's going to be is a WWE show with TNA fucking letters on the wall. That's it. It's going to be produced, shot, set up. Everything is going to be formalized to meet WWE's way of doing things. And they are going to strip these promotions of their individuality and everything that made them special to begin with. They might be doing better business now, of course. That's the whole point. But for the traditionalists or the wrestling fans that kind of like their Mexican wrestling to be Mexican wrestling, or to like the fact that WWE is there, we enjoy what WWE has to offer, all these pay-per-views, but we don't want all of our wrestling looking like that. And it's just, we're living in a very weird time right now. Who was on the stage? Was it Nick Khan and Triple H and like Undertaker or something? Like, what a wild picture in Mexico City. Those three, they were at ringside too. Triple H was there watching the show. And there was a few characters there that, that might have frightened him a little bit. So it's just a very strange world we're in. And like I said, none of this is necessarily bad. Triple Mania was looked at as not only a good show, but also, they did good business for AAA. So far this partnership seems to be working out. And WWE isn't just using them as their lapdogs. I feel like they're using TNA like that. I feel like they're just using TNA as a way to fuck with AEW, where AAA, maybe not so much, even though they probably did that in response to AEW working with CMLL. But I just worry that I don't want to see WWE buy too many entities, like a WWE owned property. How it's going to look. And we've already seen that with TNA, even at Slammiversary with the 7,000 people there. Just, they still have really low budget looking, a feel to them. But a lot of what they were doing, you could tell that there's somewhat of a WWE influence there. And I think that's only going to become more so the more involved WWE gets, or if they do wind up purchasing the company, as they are, number one, I think maybe looking for a buyer, or maybe looking to land a TV deal as well. And then we're just going to have another WWE produced show And I don't know how any fan could expect that to realistically compete with AEW. Well, all they need is a TV deal. They're seeking like $10 million a year for their TV deal. AEW gets 185 or 180. They get nearly 20 times that. I mean, I don't know what they think is going to happen there with TNA. I don't think anything's great is going to happen if WWE winds up buying them. It's not going to mean anything. But anyway, that's one thing I took away from Triple Mania is I was like, maybe the feel of it, it's just a little too WWE looking for me. You know, I wish it was more, instead of 80-20, I wish it was like 40-60 or something like that, where it looks like 40% WWE, 60% AAA. I don't know. Just a minor concern. After the Triple Mania highlights and the announcement of Dominic and Vikingo at Worlds Collide on September 12th, we had a tag team match with more AAA talent. Mr. Iguana is here tonight, making his Raw debut, I believe. He's teaming up with Dragon Lee, taking on Finn Balor and JD McNugent. So we've got Balor and JD taking on these guys. And, of course, Balor and Mr. Iguana made a lot of headlines at Triple Mania when Balor had his own little doll, which I believe is already for sale up on WWE Shop. Big surprise. So there was a little doll battle there. So all these, tree branch up the ass, snot-nosed little anger boys, they get all riled up, about somebody doing something silly in AEW or Harley Cameron's little puppet. I present to you Triple Mania. Shut the fuck up. Also, in this match, Balor and JD did get the win. Dom was out there. He wound up holding Dragon Lee's leg in the corner, and that allowed Balor to nail Dragon Lee, then go to the top rope, hit the coup de Gracie for the win. And then after the match, Dom is starting to clean off the announce table because he's going to slam someone through it. And Vikingo shows up. He's standing on the barricade with the title. He attacks Dom and takes him out. Then he starts taking out JD and Balor until Dominic nails Vikingo in the ring from behind with the Intercontinental title, or I think with Vikingo's title, and they beat the hell out of him, and Judgment Day stands tall over the corpse of Vikingo. So I think Dominic Mysterio has a legitimate chance to win that championship at Worlds Collide, and he's my pick to win next year's Money in the Bank ladder match as well. I see big things for Dom. Loving me some Dom. After that, it was time for the Intercontinental Championship match. Becky Lynch defending. What's the word? Defending. I lost my place in my notes. Becky Lynch defending against Natalya. Before the match, Becky did an interview just basically saying that Natalya doesn't deserve to be in the ring with her and whatnot. And then we go to the match, and Becky kind of injures Natalya's arm pretty early on and starts working over the arm. And Natty is really selling the arm. In the end, Natty taps out to a disarmer. She just can't take it anymore. Becky's strategy worked. And after the match, Becky then attacked Maxine, who's trying to tend to Natalya, and that's when Nikki Bella came out to make the save and hits the rack attack on the Baxter. So I'm wondering with this gimmick, this MMA gimmick, this low-key legend thing that Natty's been doing on the Independents, which has been really fun to watch. She really seems like she's having a good time doing this, and she even wrestled at Triple Mania with that. So I'm wondering if what happened here was a way to maybe introduce that character to the main roster. What I was hoping is that Natty would continue to gain this this support and this following of this character, and fans would want to see it on TV. Like, I would want to have a little bit more momentum here. Try to get this over like a Joe Hendry type of thing. Get fans wanting this badass Natty. And then on Raw one night, when Becky's in there talking shit, you can have the lights go down. Nice AEW move there, right? The lights go out, they come back up, and low-key Natty in that gear is standing right there in the ring, right in front of Becky Lynch. Becky snaps, runs off, like a Cactus Jack type of thing. I don't think Natalya is there yet with the low-key legend. Obviously, fans are enjoying what they're seeing from her there, but it hasn't developed the amount of support or popularity I think that it would need for her to bring that to the main roster. Unless they're just going to bring it now, which they might be doing. And based on the fact that she got tapped out, Maybe, on TV, she's going to start saying, I can't let that happen again. I need to start tapping into who I really am. And, this wouldn't have happened to me if we would have wrestled in Evolve or wherever the fuck she's been wrestling. So maybe that's the beginning of this. We will see. I like Natalya a lot. I don't think I'm ever going to forgive WWE for not making her the first ever Women's Intercontinental Champion. What would it have hurt? Like, they look like deliberate assholes for not doing it. Like, Lyra and Becky, they could have still won the championship. Lyra could have just beat Natalya for it. Like, what's the big deal? Like, Lyra Valkyria, I love her, but did she need to be the first woman, the first women's Intercontinental Champion? No. Like, Natalya, her family has so much history with that championship. Her 3 of her uncles have history with that championship. Owen, Brett, and Davey. That belt, and the Hart family, it's been around the waist of a lot of wrestlers. And if they're going to create a women's Intercontinental Championship title, I just don't understand, if you're Triple H or WWE, why you would not want a Hart as the first person on that title lineage, especially someone like Natty, who's been there for so many years. It wouldn't have mattered, if they could have given her the title first, she could have won it, had the big moment, and then just fucking drop it to Lyra or Becky or whoever. Does not matter. As long as you're the first champion, you don't even have to have a long run. 4 months, take it off of her. Not a big deal. And the fact that they couldn't do that, in favor of Lyra was just weird. It doesn't harm Lyra in any way. Just keep Lyra out of the tournament or keep her away from it. And then when Natalya wins it, set up a feud, boom, she wins and she's champion now. And then she can move on to the Becky thing. All would have been fine. All would have been right with the world had they done that. And I think it's an insult to Natalya. Of all the years she's been there, all the work that she's put in, how she seems to be regarded in the locker room, as kind of, like a mentor. She's been there, before wrestling got good again. She was there in the Divas era. She was coming in as a legitimate worker, still in the middle of the lingerie pillow fights. And she's been there for so long, seen a lot of women achieve a lot more greatness than she has. And she's always come to work with a smile every fucking week. The least you assholes could have done for her was given her the Intercontinental Championship first, and they didn't. So every 4 podcasts or 4 Raw reviews, maybe 4 or 5, I'm going to complain about that. So just remind me if 4 podcasts go by and say, hey, Greg, you haven't complained about Natty not being the first ever Women's Intercontinental Champion. Remind me in the chat so I can rant. Thank you. Then we are backstage again, and I don't remember exactly what I said last week, but it was really similar to what we saw here. So last week, of course, Sheamus and Rusev continued to brawl, and I said, okay, what's going to happen? Because Pierce is getting madder and madder about this. Next week, something's going to happen. They're going to fucking be brawling, or they're going to be in the ring, and there's going to be a run-in on one of their matches or something like that. They're going to go nuts again, and Pierce is just going to lose his shit, and he's going to book a blow-off with a stip for Clash in Paris. That's exactly what happened. Sheamus is back there about to get interviewed when Rusev shows up in the background, and before they can fight, security is there. Adam Pearce is there. He's losing it and makes a Donnybrook match for Paris. So I was really close. We were trying to guess what the stipulation would be, and we knew it would be street fight related. Some can't be a Belfast brawl or, one of the, a Paris punch. I don't know. It's going to be something like that, and it sounds like a Donnybrook, which is just another name for a no disqualification match or an Extreme Rules match or a no holds barred match or maybe not so much a Falls Count Anywhere match, but basically a Donnybrook is a different word for the same match. There's about 9 or 10 different ways you can do the same match. Donnybrook is going to be what it's going to be in Paris, and that's going to be a lot of fun, I think. Blow-off time for those two. I think Sheamus wins that. I think Rusev, not feeling it with him in WWE. I feel like he's back there getting a nice paycheck. Good for him. I just don't see him as a realistic top contender there. I just don't. After that, it was time for the big announcement. The big announcement that WWE mentioned earlier on in the week after Naomi was not cleared to defend her title last week against Io Sky. They remained tight-lipped about everything all week until they announced that Naomi would be on Raw tonight to address her future. And this was her time. This came right at the top of the second hour here, right before the main event. And right before she came to the ring, Michael Cole and Corey Graves say, right after Monday Night Raw tonight, a very special Stephanie McMahon podcast is going to drop. And they showed a quick clip of it where Stephanie was like, Trinity, Jimmy, you have some news. And then they cut it off and went to commercial. And I'm like, well, that confirms it. Or they didn't go to commercial. Maybe they went into Naomi's entrance. I don't remember. But that confirms it. The fact that they kind of teased that and came back, I'm like, okay, even though we all kind of had sniffed this out, that Naomi, she might not be feeling the glow anymore, but we all had a feeling she was glowing. You know what I mean? So we all kind of had a feeling this was going to be the case here. But once they showed that clip, it at least gave me a little bit of final relief that it wasn't some sort of an injury. This is good news, not bad. That was what I took away from that. Okay, good. They might have spoiled us a little bit there, but even though they did, that we just know that that's good news. So then Naomi comes out to the ring, and you can tell she's already got tears in her eye. And I got to give her props, man. She really wanted her husband to make this announcement, and they showed the little teaser clip on the podcast. So you think that we're going to see that full clip, on the podcast later when it's released. But then when Naomi's in the ring, I thought she was going to announce the pregnancy, but instead she didn't say anything, just watch the Tron. And they cut to the Tron where Jimmy makes the announcement that they're expecting a baby on the Stephanie podcast, and everybody claps, and it was happy. And I think that's really cool of Naomi to want to have Jimmy be the one to announce that. So she's hearing all the love from the fans. I'm just like loving it. I'm like, oh, this is so awesome. I'm so happy for her, and it's getting pretty emotional. And I'm like, this is so great. And then Naomi, oh, this is why she's so awesome. This is why I love her, because I did not see it coming. She's this great heel now, and I was wondering all week, I'm like, if she's going to announce a pregnancy, that's going to be weird, because her character is this new no-nonsense, real asshole type of heel, and now she's going to have to be in this kind of like emotional type of segment here where she's going to relinquish the title and she's going to leave for a year. And I thought she was going to have to basically break character in order to do this. Oh, no, she's not breaking any characters. What the fuck are you talking about, Greg? She ain't breaking nothing. She immediately heels on Adam Pearce, who tries to congratulate her, and she basically says, get the fuck out of my face, and kicks him out of the ring, sings the na-na-na song and everything, and then she starts going on to talk about the women's division. You better be thanking Big Jim, because he likes to Netflix and chill. And then she says something like, the bloodline continues, baby. And she screams into the microphone. Oh, it was so good. I mean, and she was right back into that heel character right after they made the announcement. She just went right back into that Naomi. But what I loved about it was that when she was doing that, she still had like the tears in her eyes. So she is out there performing this character as this heel Naomi while you can see the truth written all over her face. This was still a very emotional night for her. This is almost like her farewell. She's cutting this final promo, and we're not going to see her for a while. And when Pierce, she told Pierce that she's not going to relinquish shit. She says, I'm not going to relinquish shit. They didn't bleep it out or anything on NXT. So she said she wasn't going to forfeit the title. I thought she was going to take it with her. But after she kicked Pierce out of the ring, after she talked about how Big Jim likes to Netflix and chill and how the bloodline is going to continue, she says, here's what I'm going to do. She goes, I'm going to put the title down right here in the ring. And she warns, basically, the women's division that whoever is champion, when she comes back, better proceed with caution. She's going to come right back, even if she has to be breastfeeding her own baby. When she shows back up, she is immediately coming back for this championship. And I love that, because prior to this, all week long, when we were wondering about Naomi and her announcement, and if it did turn out to be a pregnancy, what that would mean for Naomi's career, because we don't know anything about her personal life. She might want to start a family. This might just be the first of 6 babies she wants to have, and she might not wrestle again. It's not a guarantee that if you have a baby, you're back in 9 months, so you're at minimum, she's gone a year. You know, at the very least, we are not going to see Naomi for 1 year. And that was really, really sad. And that's assuming she comes immediately back. If she comes immediately back, what do you want to give her? 3 months after pregnancy to hit the ring? You know, I don't know how many months after Becky had the baby, but it was probably somewhere around that. So I think a year, that's for women who want to come back as soon as possible. We didn't really know what Naomi wanted to do. She might want to be a mom for a little bit, spend the first year at home with the baby, then come back, which in which case would put her out 2 years. So we didn't really know that. So the fact that she kind of cut the promo the way she did, she stayed in character for it, which is really what I loved. I loved that she stayed in character, even though she was kind of crying the whole time. This whole piece of business was just wonderful. It's, like I said earlier, I know we've only had 2 of these, but it's my favorite, relinquish the title due to pregnancy segments of all time. And I know a lot of people are partial to the Becky one back during the pandemic days when she got pregnant and then she gifted Asuka the championship in the briefcase. And I think Becky was champion and then Asuka was the Money in the Bank briefcase holder, right? And I think she won that the night before. Wasn't it the night after Money in the Bank or something? And then Becky gave Asuka the belt, and then, Asuka was genuinely surprised. That's the story that people give, but I want the chat here to help me refresh my memory. I could go back and look at my own review if I want to. I don't really remember. I don't want to relive pandemic TV, that's for sure. But if I remember right, I thought we went into that also kind of thinking that Becky might be pregnant. Again, I don't remember how or when the details came out, but I have a vivid memory of going into that night's Raw knowing, just like we knew tonight, that Becky Lynch being pregnant was a possibility. And everybody retells the same story. And I'm not saying I know for sure. I just feel like my instincts are telling me this is wrong. Fans insist that Asuka's reaction was genuine. And it was so sweet. You're having a baby, and the way the two of them hugged, and it was very, very emotional. And granted, there's maybe a little bit of more of a language barrier with Asuka, so maybe she wasn't privy to everything. Maybe if people were talking about a pregnancy, she didn't understand what they were saying. But she has a phone, she has social media, that can tell her in her own language what this might be about. I thought that we went into that segment with Becky and Asuka knowing that that was a possibility. So when people say what made that segment so good was Asuka's genuine reaction, I question whether or not it was genuine. Last night, when we were watching SummerSlam 1997, first match of the night, Mankind versus Hunter Hearst Helmsley. Near the end of the match, I saw something white that looked just like a tooth inside of Mick Foley's nose. And I've always wondered, I've always questioned and had my doubts about that tooth. At Hell in the Cell, he swallowed the tooth and it came through his nose. I don't think that was a tooth. I don't know what the fuck it was, but I don't think it was a tooth. It was something else. I don't know what, but it was something else. And so, and it's the same thing. It's like one of those things that I just don't fully buy. I don't fully believe that was a tooth in his nose. I know it sounds great, and it's a better sounding story than it was a piece of fabric from a shirt, but that's the story we go with. Asuka, it's the same thing. I'm just kind of being a little devil's advocate here. Like I don't think it. I think she knew. I think she just did a really good job of making it seem like she didn't. Because I don't think she knew she was going to be champion either. I think it was like 2 surprises. I don't know what the story was. Were they trying to keep Asuka in the dark, and she not only didn't know that Becky was pregnant, but also didn't know she was going to be given the championship? I just feel like after all the preparation that goes into Monday Night Raws, and she went through all that hair and makeup and all that shit Asuka did all day long, and it never got to her or dawned on her until they got in the ring what might be going on here. Because if Becky was injured, don't you think Asuka would know that? Or backstage 9 hours before the fucking show starts when they're all arriving at the arena, don't you think Becky would have told her? I don't believe, just personally, it's a personal belief. I'm not saying I'm right or wrong. I just don't personally believe that Asuka didn't know. I feel like she did. So when it comes to which pregnancy announcement was better, I can't believe we're even having this debate. because they were both wonderful and they were both very happy. You were happy for both women in both cases, regardless of, what was talked about or not. Both were awesome. But I think a lot of the reason why people pick the Becky one is because of their belief that Asuka's reaction was genuine, and I just question that belief. Everything here with Naomi was great. The way she stayed in character, while you could literally see the levels of emotion that was going on. And I was going through it. I was so happy for Naomi. And then when she went into to being a heel, it almost made me more emotional, if that makes any sense. Once she started healing, I was like, oh man, that's almost, in a way, that almost makes it even more special. The fact that she was able to do that with tears in her eyes and still be that character, not breaking kayfabe in any way, not automatically turning into a babyface just because you got a bun in the oven now. And now you just have to be this happy mother. No, she's still Naomi, who could probably be 8.5 months pregnant and still beat your ass. That's the Naomi that I love. And so just all the best to Trinity, all the best to Jimmy Uso. I hope the pregnancy goes perfectly, no complications. I hope they give birth to a very, very, very beautiful little boy or girl, or maybe there's a couple of them in there. I don't know. Greg is a great name, if you guys are looking for names there. I don't think we have enough Samoan Gregs out there. We need some more. We need some more Samoan Gregs. We need some more dark olive skinned Gregs with tats all over their fucking chests. We need more of them. So let's, I pitch Greg if it's a boy. Gregorina if it's a girl. Congratulations to Naomi and Jimmy. Super happy for them. And that left us, of course, with the main event. Jimmy's brother Jay, he's taking on Braun Breaker in an Extreme Rules match. This was your typical WWE style Extreme Rules match. Shopping cart, bullshit all over the ring, all over the arena. And we were just basically waiting for the interference. That's all we were waiting. So that's all we were waiting for, because it was Extreme Rules. Everybody can interfere. There are no rules. We were just waiting for those interferences to start. Kicked off with Bronson Reed. He hits the ring, hits a DVD to Jey Uso. That triggers LA Knight's music. Out he comes. Then Rollins shows up. I think he comes through the crowd, and he hits the ringside area over by the announce table and starts attacking. And then CM Punk arrives. So it was Reed, then LA Knight, then Rollins, then CM Punk. So Punk goes for the GTS. And I think he's got Rollins, right? He's got Rollins in the ring. I think he's trying to GTS him. Rollins hops off and shoves Punk into LA Knight, who's on the apron. He then falls through the table, and there's a whole bunch more brawling. At this point, everybody is now out there, so it's just a waiting game. We just need to wait for the Tribal Chiefs music to hit. It does. Braun Breaker is waiting for him in the aisleway, I think, or he's waiting for him somewhere. But Roman winds up coming through the crowd and nails Braun Breaker in the ringside area with a spear. And then he hits Bronson Reed with a Superman punch. Breaker is now back in the ring. Jey Uso super kicks him. Breaker lands on the table. Jey Uso goes up to the top, hits a top rope splash to Breaker through the table for the win. We actually get a winner in our Raw main event for a change, an actual 3 count, 1, 2, 3. Jey Uso beats Braun Breaker, and he already had a winning record against Braun Breaker going into this match. Now he just padded it some more in a really, kind of fun brawl at the end, although it was very predictable. After the match, Roman Reigns looking at Bronson Reed in the aisleway saying, "I'll see you in Paris." So as we expected, it's going to be Roman and Bronson Reed in Paris. They will probably open up the show, and I want not all of them, but I want some fans to understand, you got to understand and come to grips with this. Bronson Reed is not going to win. I know what you guys want to say. I know you want to say Bronson Reed should win. No, Bronson Reed shouldn't. Bronson Reed's not going to win. Roman Reigns is going to win. That's what's going to happen. So just get anything else out of your mind right now, because that's what's happening. We all know WWE. We all watch WWE. Sure, it might be a good idea to put over Bronson Reed, but they're not gonna. It's gonna be Roman Reigns all the way, baby. You know that. So anyway, that is it for your Raw results there. Let's see what you guys have to say about the show. We'll do some super chats here and whatnot. Good to see some other friends in here, like Zach Pauget. Red Raven Rucker is in the house as well. Zach Pauget, I'm in the minority, but I simply don't care about Karrion Kross. Max Pokebra says, I'm with you. I'm with both of y'all. I like Kross, I do, but one of the things that I kind of made a decision about this week, and even though we spent a pretty good amount of time on him on the podcast on Saturday, throughout the week, I'm like, I like Kross. I want what's best for him. I wish nothing but the best for him and Scarlett. But I don't have an interest in an hour and 11-minute long Karrion Kross YouTube documentary. And I certainly don't have interest in another hour-long interview on Ariel Helwani after that. This isn't a situation or a contract that is intriguing me to the point that I want to know every single little fucking detail about its progress. I just don't care. And so I didn't really watch the documentary. I just watched a few parts of it, but I'm like, I can't sit through this. Like, I like Kross, but I don't like him enough for that, to sit through that. Like, this whole situation isn't worth, to me, that much time. All these different reports and these, you know, and these updates from various people, your Meltzers and whatnot. And I'm like, it's just too much. I think Fightful Select had 3 write-ups on it, you know, in the last couple of weeks, and I read them all, you know, but it's like, man, this is so much to just think about. And I finally decided, I'm like, I'm going to choose not to care anymore and just sit back and wait for this shit to resolve itself. He's either gone and he ain't coming back, or they're going to use this outside support he has to get him back. But based on what he said in the interview, you know, with his contract and whatnot, he wanted the metrics. You know what that means, don't you? It means he didn't like what was on that contract. If they offered him $5 million a year, do you think he'd want the metrics on that? No, he wouldn't give a fuck. So unless WWE comes back to him with a better offer, and I only think that's going to happen if they see, you know, just still this loud support for Kross that's not going away, similar to how CM Punk chants and things like that. But I don't think Kross is there. You know, fans who wanted to sabotage Raw last week, the fans haven't been able to sabotage Raw when WWE deserves it. And for the Kross situation, they're not really in the wrong there. You know, I feel like they lowballed him on the offer. They're definitely shitty. You know, WWE's, they're shitty people, 100%. But I don't necessarily, with this particular situation, feel like they were necessarily in the wrong. You know, they're just business transaction. That's just what they offered him. So the fans didn't really have a reason to, we got to hijack the show and really let WWE know how they dropped the ball. No, this is just one of those situations that it's unfortunate, because I feel like Kross was doing good enough work to stay with the company there, and apparently they did want him to stay, but just not for the amount that he wanted. Very similar to the R-Truth situation. You know, R-Truth just wasn't flat out released. Apparently they did offer him a new deal. He didn't want it. You know, and then they cut him, fans flipped out, and they brought him back. So maybe Kross was kind of hoping for a situation like that, but you know, even though I saw a couple of "We Want Kross" signs in the crowd tonight, I saw like 2, you know, but fuck, I've had 2 signs in the crowd before. So I don't see it getting to that point to where it's attention that WWE can't ignore. Oh, the fans are being so loud about this, we got to bring him back. It isn't like that. I think that's what Kross wants, and a lot of the hardcore Kross fans, they're hoping that it got to that point, but I'm just not seeing it happen. And the more time goes on without Kross being on TV, the more fans are going to start forgetting about him. So I'm still holding out hope that he comes back. But in terms of like following the day-by-day stuff, the CM Punk stuff, you know, a couple years ago with AEW, that was way more interesting. The Bret Hart stuff years ago when he left WWE and all that. I mean, I would try to find every single detail about that stuff. But Kross is just one situation to where I'm like, yeah, I hope he comes back, and I'd like to see him back in WWE again. But ultimately, I ain't losing sleep either way. And that's kind of my stance on Kross. But I still do think, like we talked about on Saturday, there's an excellent chance that he will be back. It just might be a while from now. And I'm going to stop looking for updates and just move on with my life. You know what I mean? Thank you, Max, for the $2. So he did pin Roman. I forgot who got pinned, if it was Roman or Punk at 41. So Seth Rollins has pinned Roman Reigns in 2, count 'em, WrestleMania main events. You got to wonder when Roman and Seth is going to happen. Is that a WrestleMania match they're building towards? I mean, at some point, Roman might have to win that other belt. Are they setting up big War Games match? Team Seth, Team Roman? Probably. It's probably going to be the Vision against Roman, Punk, Jay, and Sammy, or Sammy's on SmackDown now. I don't know. Something like that. Finn Balor's puppet is better than Harley Cameron's. I really like Harley Cameron's puppet. She's really good at that. Talking without moving her mouth thing. Okay, thank you for the Juliet. Becky didn't reveal her pregnancy to anybody but the top brass until she announced it on air at Raw. So yes, Asuka's reaction was genuine. And she also says it was a tooth. So Juliet is shooting down my conspiracy theories here. But I swear, going into that, maybe it was just chatter. Maybe fans were like, hey, she might be pregnant. Because when she announced that she was pregnant, I was not dead shocked. I remember not being shocked. I remember like, oh, okay, so she is pregnant. Like that type of thing. So how did I know that? It had to have been sniffed out. So basically, if Becky didn't tell anybody, she didn't even tell there's no way that's true. They wouldn't let her out there with a live mic and just say whatever you want. Somebody knew that she was pregnant. They had to see her put the belt in the briefcase. She did that. What'd she do? Take the belt. Hey, Asuka, let me borrow your briefcase for a minute. And then take it in the bathroom and put the belt in it while nobody's looking. None of this adds up, Juliet. It doesn't add up to me. So I don't believe that all of WWE found out that moment in the ring. I refuse to believe that. I just, no. Because I knew going into that. So Asuka's reaction being genuine, I can't prove that. That very well may have been the case. I can't prove any of this. But I just feel like I think that's a story they like to tell. Even if Becky said it in her book or something, I didn't reveal the pregnancy. She's just saying that. She's lying. Like there's no way that nobody knew she was pregnant until that moment when she said it on the microphone. No. Maybe a small few, like somebody knew besides her. It wasn't just her. No, I just don't believe it. The tooth, again, it could be a tooth. It could be a tooth, but I've always had my doubts. You can't prove that it was a tooth. We never knew when we were watching it that night. We weren't sure what it was, but it did look like a tooth. But here's another thing about teeth. Mick Foley's teeth ain't white. They're off-white. And if one of them things were to come through his mouth, it would not be bright white like that. It would be brown or yellow or covered in blood. Like it wouldn't, a pearly white tooth isn't going to come out of his nose. And that thing was white as shit. Test it yourself. What's Mitch Hedberg? I used to think my teeth were white until I took a shower with Noxema. And then I realized they are not white. They are off-white. So put your teeth next to something that's really, really white. They ain't going to look really, really white. And Mick Foley was wearing a white fucking shirt that had a bright white tooth sticking out of his nose. His teeth ain't. Have you seen him recently? Jim Ross just made comments about his teeth, about how he needs to fix his grill. So which tooth was it? Your molars are not that fucking white. Which tooth got knocked out? How come Foley never said, this is the tooth that wound up in my nose? He's never once done that, at least that I've seen. Show me an interview where Foley shows the hole where the tooth was. So this right here, this is the tooth that went through my nose. He's never said that because it wasn't a tooth. That's my belief. I'm not dying on the hill. I'm just saying that's my belief. I'll just kind of lightly box on the hill. I'm not dying up there. The new one, appreciate the $5. Remember Karma's pregnancy announcement? Never came since. I forgot about. Yeah, we've had 3 of these, I guess. But Karma wasn't champion. She was just in WWE really short time and then got pregnant, right? So she was one of the first. How many other women got pregnant during their run? Carmella did. She didn't have to forfeit anything though, right? And then who else has had a kid? Alexa Bliss has had a kid, right? Yeah, so there's some moms out there. Nikki Bella also. Zane G, I'm so glad you said that. Talk about the Mandy Rose herpes situation. All I saw was the clip of Mandy Rose and that tan stud that she's with, Tito Santana or whatever his fucking name is. And she said that years ago there was a herpes outbreak in NXT and they had to like clean the ring and scrub the ring. And I just love that story because it's so unsurprising. Herpes and NXT. I love it. I love it. And Zane, with the new podcast on Saturdays, when we start moving into our fall podcast format, we're going to have things like that. I'm going to be taking suggestions from you guys on what to talk about. I'm going to be putting posts up on YouTube so you guys can ask or suggest some things to talk about, and I'll look at it a few days, and if I see something crazy, oh, cool, I'll look up what that story's about, and we'll tie it into the podcast since we're going to have more time to do that. But things like that, Zane, those are what I want you guys to tell me about in these posts that I make prior to these podcasts so we can talk about all of them. Oh, so funny. But yeah, I did see that clip. I got a kick out of it. Max, yeah, I have a feeling you're right about that. Thanks for the $2. Seth versus Roman has to happen. Mania 42 has to be it. Yeah, I don't know where else it would be, unless they booked it at the Rumble. If you want to keep Roman out of the Rumble so he doesn't, so they don't have to eliminate him, you could have him face Rollins. But Roman and Rollins at Mania one-on-one, yeah, that's probably what they're going for. Like if it's Roman and Rollins and Punk and Cody, I'd be into that. I could get behind that. Roman, Rollins, Punk, Cody. If you had to try to book out right now in late August, what's going to be the 2 World Championship matches at WrestleMania? I think Cody and Punk and Rollins and Roman would be tremendous. If that's the case, and Rollins and Cody are both champions going in to next year, they both retain their titles all this time and go into WrestleMania as champions. Do they both drop them? We get 2 title changes then? Roman beats Seth for that championship, and then Punk wins the big one. Punk wins the WWE title from Cody. Or maybe Cody beats Punk and turns heel or something like that. But that's what I would do. In terms of the men's roster, those are your top 4. I think Breakker has to wait. I think Breakker and Roman could be WrestleMania. And Seth and Punk still have to have another blow off. I feel like Punk's got to take that belt from Seth at some point. So I don't know how you do all that in this amount of time. But one match I think WWE needs to do, and WrestleMania would be a good spot for that, is CM Punk and Cody Rhodes. I really think that would be a fun program. Cody and Punk. Get that done before, Punk's he's already past his prime, but past the ability to be able to do this. And then once, get a couple of those last matches done, then you spend 2026 getting Braun Breaker ready for the big time, for him to be at the top of the mountain. I mean, I would have, that's how I would do it. I would somehow try to get to Cody and Punk if you could, because I think that would be fun. And then do Rollins and Roman, maybe Roman winning the title from Rollins at WrestleMania, and then Roman dropping it to Braun Breaker at SummerSlam next year. So maybe next year's SummerSlam is when Braun Breaker beats Roman Reigns for the championship. Maybe. Cody versus Gunther. I'm fine with Cody versus Gunther, not at WrestleMania. Not at WrestleMania. I just want I want some big matches. I'd rather see Cody and Gunther at Elimination Chamber or one of those shows in France or a Saudi show or something like that. They've already wrestled. Cody and Gunther wrestled in Saudi, didn't they, for that stupid belt, the green belt? So yeah, I'm not against Cody and Gunther, but that's not to me a WrestleMania match. I wouldn't want it there. And there's talk of Jericho coming back. Somebody put up a post about Jericho's contract coming up at the end of the year, and they would like to see him return to WWE, and Jericho liked the post. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Jericho back in WWE, not in the ring. I think they could let him have a retirement match the way they let Kurt Angle have a retirement match, but Jericho, I think, should just come in and be a personality. Probably, maybe start up his podcast again under the WWE umbrella. What Broken Skull Sessions was. Jericho can come in and be that. So now then it'd be Cody and Jericho and Undertaker all with podcasts. But Jericho, he doesn't get along with Punk and stuff. So I don't know. They would have to patch things up there and make sure there's not going to be any issues there. And Max, I forgot, I didn't see that $2 from earlier. I do like AEW lets New Japan be different. Yeah, because AEW doesn't own them. They have a working agreement with them. So when you start having ownership, then they can just kind of do whatever they want. And I wouldn't want to see, New Japan adopt, an AEW or a WWE production style, because that takes away from what makes New Japan great. You know what I mean? But Jericho coming back, I'm into it. Just because I think he's going to have to go into the Hall of Fame. He has to go into the Hall of Fame. He needs to go in both Hall of Fames, to be honest. I mean, Jericho should be able to, he's going to sign a deal with WWE. Are they going to try to sign him up to like a 20-year Legends deal so he can never go back to AEW and be inducted into their Hall of Fame? I think all of the elite, Kenny, the Bucks, Cody, and Hangman all need to be inducted, along with Jericho, along with Sting. Some of those, early names there need to go in one day. But Jericho coming back to WWE to maybe put a cherry on top or kind of close the book on the wrestling chapter of his life, I could see that happening, and I'd be into it. So I don't think that Jericho re-signing with AEW would really make much sense at this point. I don't want to see him back in there. No more Jericho Appreciation Society, or what was the one where he's going, "Hi guys," all that, whatever that one was. I'm done. I don't want him around. I don't need him around. Jericho, so just bring him back to WWE, give him a little retirement angle, quick little match on a pay-per-view, maybe in Canada, maybe in Winnipeg, you idiots, and then do a send-off, put him in the Hall of Fame at the next available Hall of Fame, and call it a day. And then have his podcast, or, he can have another role in WWE, maybe an on-screen role doing something. There's still value to get out of Jericho in that way. We will see. As a matter of fact, it's so old. Oh, I can't. I'm using it as a weight for something, but I still have 3 bottles of Jericho bubbly that's never been opened that I bought 5 or 6 years ago when he won the title, a little bit of the bubbly. So where the Winged Eagle title is, right there, it's right there. It's actually holding the title down. So I have it on top of there, but that's a bottle of the bubbly right there. So I'll post a video of me opening these, and I'm probably going to dump them down the drain, because that's cheap champagne and it would not keep for 5 years. You wouldn't want to drink that at this point. So I'm probably going to dump them all out and then just save the empty bottles for decoration. But I have those, and then I have the ones from the Jericho Cruise that are still unopened. And this is dog shit sparkling wine, by the way. This is nothing good that wouldn't get better with age. It would get worse. So I'm going to open these up and dump them down the sink here in the next few days. And when I do that, maybe I'll put up a YouTube short of me doing that. And I didn't even enjoy the alcohol that was in those. Learning Tree, thank you. I'm like, what the hell is that called? All right, I think I got everybody. Right on, guys. Well, I want to thank you for being here tonight. For this Raw review. Obviously, we'll be back here Saturday. I don't want you guys to wait until Saturday to have to hear from me again, so I'm going to try to come up here before then. You know what? I think we need to plan. Yeah, I'm going to plan a stream for Thursday, maybe Friday. I got to look at my schedule. Thursday or Friday, we will be here for Forbidden Door predictions, because we're going to be here this Sunday to watch Forbidden Door. We could always do the predictions on Saturday, but I might want to keep that separate. I'm not sure how I'm going to do that now, or do that yet. So keep a lookout this week. I'll be having a link up for the Forbidden Door watch-along on Sunday, and the review for Sunday, Saturday's podcast as well, and then we'll come up here and try to bust out some predictions prior to then. So just keep that in mind. If you guys don't mind hitting thumbs up button on the way out the door, I would appreciate it, and I will catch you guys in just a couple of days for Forbidden Door Week. It's going to be wild. Y'all have a good night. Peace.